Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi guys.
Hello, everyone.
Hey guys. Hello.
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 Okay, while Ines is taking the attendance, is there any questions from last class? We can go through. Ines, it seems like we have several people missing. Shall we wait for a few minutes before we get started? Okay.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Let's give it a few minutes for others to Ines, are you capturing the attendance? Oh, Ines is not there. Oh, Ines is not
Yes,
there.
I'm taking the attendance now.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't see your name. Okay, let's get started. I think we have almost everyone. So, did anyone have a chance to practice on the To-Do app or some other JavaScript projects?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, how is it going? How was it going?
Yes, I think.
Sorry? Is it safe to assume it went okay?
No, it's good. I thought I had pressed space. Now you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Okay. So let's get started. Today we will switch gears to go through some of the basics related to dealing with the console, and then we can take it from there. Just bear with me, I need to open up my list. So today's topic, there will be a theoretical part, so please pay attention. And also there will be a part where we will be using the actual terminal. So let's discuss the theoretical part first. So just so you know, we are now preparing to get started with Node. And to be able to easily deal with Node, we will have to make sure everybody is aware and familiar with the command line or the terminal or the CLI. So this is what we'll try to cover today. And hopefully if we move through this quickly, we will cover also the NPM, the Node Package Manager. So let me share my screen and let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, fantastic. So like as I mentioned, what we will be covering today is what we call the terminal. So for those on Mac, you'll be able to follow along easily. For those on Windows, you will need to make sure you have Git Bash installed on your machine. So if anyone doesn't have that already, we will need to go to Get. I think it's, and then we will need to download. So this is the download page. I'll share it in the chat. So in the chat, I'm sharing a link to where you can download Git Bash. And actually, I should be sharing my entire screen, not just this application. So there we go. Okay. Well, so those on Mac, you will have. It's okay to download it as well, but it's mainly for. Like everyone can download it actually, but mainly the main beneficiary today would be the Windows users. So please go ahead and download this Git and let me know if you're facing any issues. Usually it's a straightforward process, like you keep going next. If someone has Windows machine who's willing to share their screen, we can do the installation on their computer and then we can everybody else can follow along because there might be one or two configurations that we need to do along the way. Anyone is willing to volunteer?
Should I?
Yeah, go for it. Share your screen and let's do it. Please, everyone, pay attention and follow along because we will. There will be a couple of changes that you need to do. So I think most of the computers today are 64 bits. So maybe we will go for this one. Once it's downloaded, we will we'll start following along. So if anyone is not ready to start the installation, let us know and we can wait.
How about the one, click here, download the latest version? I already pushed that.
That's fine because it's the same.
Yeah, same.
Should be the same. Okay, I think it's done. So now you can click on it. Or maybe you can, yeah, you can double click on it, I guess. You just need to, I think, to double click. Yeah. Did you find it? Yeah, now feel free to close your download folder. Yeah, thank you. Now we will go ahead and click install. So if you don't mind, go slower than usual. So if any step we need to change, we'll let everybody take a chance. So hit install. This should give you some sort of a progress bar, as you see here. Fantastic. Did you have a previous installation?
Might be I have.
Okay. Is there anyone else who didn't have it before? Who can share screen?
I think I don't have it before, but I have the same screen.
It finished
Hello, good
right
evening,
away.
Amir.
Yeah, good evening.
Well, I'm just joining. I can see that you are downloading something and installing, I think GIT something. Am I to download and install?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just look for it online.
Sorry, do you want to share your screen? We can help you out. Maybe we can see it on your screen as well. Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to share my screen now. I'm sharing it. Can you see it?
Not yet. Yeah, now we can see it. So did you download from the link on Zoom? I sent already the link on Zoom. Sorry, on the chat.
Oh, I've not checked chats. I'm just joining. That's why.
Yeah, okay. Let me resend it on the chat, so you can download it from there.
Okay.
Yeah, I just sent it again.
Do I have to stop sharing so I can do that? Or
No, you
wait
can
to see it?
actually we can help you out. So go ahead and click on the link, and we can download it and install it on your machine.
I'm waiting for the chats to come up.
Just press on Zoom. You have on the bottom like Zoom. Just open it.
Okay. Actually, my system is a little bit slow, so just bear with me. I've clicked on it. I'm waiting for it to come up.
It's a little bit slow, so we'll have to move on.
Yes.
Yeah, so go ahead and download it and install
Windows,
it.
right?
Yeah, and then if you face issues, we can help you out.
I should just follow the process.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let me share my screen again, and we will get started here. So please pay attention to the theoretical part, and then we will have some hands-on.
Okay.
Before we get started, a few basics we need to get out of the way first before we are able to actually work with the command line. So first thing is to understand that we have on our machines, like our computers, we have an operating system, whether it's Windows or Mac OS, and each or any operating system would have a file system. So this file system is basically what the operating system is using to manage the data on your computer, like your images, your videos, your doc files, etc. And the same concept applies whether this operating system is running on the cloud, in a data center, or in your personal computer. The concept is the same, no difference. So basically, as an example for the Mac-based machines, and the same thing applies to Linux, by the way, the folder structure for the file system looks something like this. Starts at the root folder, and then we have several child folders. They serve different purposes. For instance, in the Mac, bin will contain the applications that you're running on, or the executables that you're running on your machine, the different softwares that you've installed, the users of that computer, and so on. The one of interest is usually the users, where you would create your account. Or if there are multiple users for the same machine, there will be multiple accounts. So each user will have his or her own folder. And then each of those users will have their dedicated desktop. They will have their dedicated documents, etc. Also, they will have their dedicated trash bin. On the other side, for Windows, things are slightly structured differently. Windows starts with the drive. So on Windows machines, usually we have a C drive and a D drive. And inside the C drive, for instance, we have usually the installation of the operating system. That's why on the C drive, usually we see the Windows folder or the program files folder or the system, some of the system related folders. And usually there will be also users folder. And inside that users folder, there will be multiple subfolders for each user on that machine. If you're the only one using that machine, usually under users folder, there will be only one user account. On the other side, on the D drive, usually it's an empty drive that you keep for like any unstructured or structured data. It's up to you as a user or group of users on that machine to store whatever you like. There's no specific structure. So this hierarchy is used by the operating system to basically maintain and manage the data on your hard disk, whether it's solid state, whether it's mechanical, whether it's a flash drive, it doesn't matter. Now, the second concept that we need to be familiar with is that we have different file extensions. So the file extension is usually separated by a dot, and it comes after the file name. So the file extension is basically the way that the operating system, your Windows or the Mac OS, identifies what program, what application should be used to open that file. So when you have a JPEG file, for instance, basically the computer or the operating system is going to use one of the photo applications in your machine. If it's TXT, it will be like a notepad or a Word document, depending on what you have assigned. If it's MP4, for instance, it will use the Windows Media Player or QuickTime if you're on Mac. PDF, if you're on Mac, it will be Preview. If you're on Windows, it might be Acrobat PDF, and so on. Same thing when we had the HTML or when we had .js or when we had .css. All those are different file extensions. It tells the operating system what application should be using. That's why when we, for instance, browse through our documents and let's say this file here, it has .docs, and you can see the icon. Bear with me, let me make this bigger. And here, maybe this is better. And here you can see that it's using the Microsoft Word as the icon for it. So the operating system knows that if I double click on this, it will be opened by the Microsoft Word. If I double click on this, it uses Preview, so it will open up in Preview, and so on. So those file extensions are useful from that perspective. For the same file extension, you cannot have two files with the same name in the same folder. So if you have a file name with certain extension, you cannot duplicate. You cannot have two matching file names with the same extension. You can have the same file name, but maybe with different extensions. This is accepted. So the file name for the extension has to be unique within one directory or within one folder. And I will use directory and folder in interchangeable manner. Both means the same thing. Now, the third concept that we need to be familiar with is the file path. So file path is basically like the address of the file on the hard disk, like where the operating system should locate that file. And it's like in reality, it's like your home address, right? You might describe your address using the street name, the unit number, maybe the postal code, and maybe the main road or the road, and so on, the street address and the city and so on. So all those comes together to identify your exact location. Same thing with the files. There are two ways. There are ways to identify how the operating system can find the file. So one of those ways is the absolute or literal path. And think of this always that we start from the root directory or from the drive if we are in the Windows. So if you are in Mac, we start from the root directory, users, username, and then whatever that folder or file is. On Windows, we start from the drive, and then we move from there. So for instance, for the same documents, we will go through users, username, documents, but we start with the drive. So this should feel like, if we take an analogy to the actual addresses in real life, it feels like you're saying, I live in Canada, Alberta, Edmonton, and then street number, whatever, unit number, whatever, and so on. So you start from the country level, right? And then you go down all the way to the unit number where you're living. So anyone who wants to reach to you needs to understand the path to you from the country level. Same thing. When we talk about absolute path, we talk about from the root directory or from the drive, in case of Windows, all the way to where the file is located. Now, the relative path is basically, it depends on where you are at the moment and where you want to go. So, for instance, if if I'm living in the street number 100 and I want to explain my location to someone who's in street 102, I can explain it to them in a relative way using maybe street number 101. So I will explain my path or my address through the nearest landmark. Same thing with relative paths. We try to explain, or we try to provide an address relative to the point from where I am at the moment, from where the current directory at the moment. So in this case, for instance, we use the dot and the double dot for convention for that. So the dot represents my current folder. Double dot represents my parent folder. So if I use the dot and then I say nested folder, another nested folder, and so on, that means from my current directory, I would like to go inside one of the folders, and then inside that folder, inside another folder. So this feels like this. If I'm having root folder, and then inside that root folder, I have folder A, and then inside folder A, I have folder B. So if I'm inside the root folder, this is dot. And then I can say / folder A, / folder B. Dot means I need to go one level up. I need to go to the parent folder. So in this case, the parent folder of folder B is folder A. And the parent folder of folder A is the root folder. And the parent folder of the root folder is the desktop, and so on. So when we use the dot, it represents current folder. 2 dots, parent folder. We are going one level up in this hierarchy. Now, the last piece with the path discussion is that when we use tld, we want to go to the root directory. So the root directory, in case of whether it's Mac or Windows, it's your user folder. So remember, we talked about here the folder structure, and we explained that we have this user, and then we have the individual users folders. So tld, the squiggly mark, represents your home folder as a user. So if you are anywhere down in the folder tree and you do cd change directory to tld, it should take you all the way to your user folder. So to see this in action, in this terminal application in Mac, currently it's showing that this is the location that I'm at, and this is tld. So if I cd to desktop and then to root folder, now I'm inside the root folder. So if I say or enter cd dot, notice that I'm not changing anything because I'm changing directly to myself. So this is the same folder. If we do cd dot dot, I go one level up. And then if we say cd tld, which is shift backtick, or the button on the left side to the number 1 or below the escape, we go back to the home directory, which is my user folder. These are few basics for dealing with the file system, understanding the file extension, and understanding the file path. Any questions about any of that? Okay. So let's talk about the command line. And as I said, we will get to the point where we'll start applying some of these theoretical parts. So the first thing we need to learn about is the anatomy of a command. So all what we are going to do for the rest of this class potentially will be on this black screen here. It looks like the console. We have been dealing with the console. It looks like the console as well. And there is an anatomy for the way commands are structured on the terminal. So usually we start with the command itself, followed by a subcommand, and then followed by some parameters, and followed by a flag. So maybe I will show you more examples as we move on during today's class, but this is the typical hierarchy or anatomy for a command. Usually we have the main command, and this would be like an application running on your machine, followed by the subcommand, something that this main command or this main program is offering, and then arguments or parameters, meaning you can configure how this subcommand can work, and finally flags, additional options or additional instructions to the how the command should work. So just to show you an example, we just installed get. So if we do get -v, this gives us the version of the get that we installed. So this is the main command, and this is a flag. Then we have also we can do get, maybe remote add origin, and then we have some sort of a link. So now this explains the entire anatomy. So this is the main command, the get application that we just installed. Remote is a subcommand set of get that deals with, if we are dealing with the GitHub, for instance, some remote repository where we store our code. And then add is actually a parameter or argument to remote. and then, or even add, sorry, add is even a sub command of remote. And then origin is a parameter, like we are adding basically a counterpart for our repository, so we can have a copy of our code locally, as well as somewhere on the cloud or somewhere on the internet. In this case, maybe it's a GitHub. So add will accept this parameter. This is something I'm choosing to call it origin. I can call it anything I want. And then the second parameter here is the actual link to that remote repository that I'm going to add to my local project. And then if I use dash no tags, for instance, regardless what this does, this is an additional configuration to how this entire command will work. So this is, regardless of what each of those is doing, this is the anatomy of command line. If you feel comfortable with this anatomy, you should be looking at any command line, even if you don't know the tool, even if you don't know the program that's running, or you are seeing it for the first time, you should be immediately realize what part of the command is potentially doing. Is it the main program? Is it a subset? Is it a parameter to configure it, or is it a configuration? Now, there are a few different, like you will hear everyone talking about shell, terminal, command line interface, or console, almost in the same way. Like all those terminologies are being used interchangeably. Like you will hear someone saying console, or command line interface, or terminal, or shell. And in our day-to-day, we basically use all of them referring to the same thing, this black screen here. But they have some technical differences. So actually the whole computer in the past, when it was just black screen, we called it console. So we are carrying this name now to the black screen that we have on our computers, but historically this was the entire machine when we say console. Terminal is what we are looking at. So this is terminal. Shell is basically the software behind the terminal. So the shell is basically a layer between the operating system and this black screen here that we are seeing. So they have technical differences, but in day-to-day activities, we usually refer them all to the same thing, which is the black screen. Any questions so far? Okay, now I need everyone, if you're in Mac, use terminal, like open it from your either applications or from your Launchpad, use that to open up terminal. If you are on Windows, open Git Bash, like the installation that we just made or completed should install a new terminal in your machine called Git Bash. And this is what we will be using. If anyone is unable to find that, let me know.
Could you repeat? Find what?
Git Bash. Are you in Windows?
No, I'm in Mac. Do
If you
I
are in
need
Mac?
to write?
No, if you are in,
No.
No, if you're on Mac, you will find the terminal as I mentioned. If you're on Windows, you will look for Git Bash. It should be in your start.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be in the start menu.
Sorry, I'm not understand how I can do this for Windows.
For Windows, did you install the Git that we just mentioned at the beginning? Like there was a link on the chat I asked it to download Git and install it. Did you complete this step?
Okay.
Was it done or not yet? If it's not yet, let me know because I have to wait for you. Okay.
Understand. Okay, thank you.
No worries. So anyone unable to find Git Bash on their machine if they are on Windows, or Terminal if they are on Mac?
Hello, Amir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've installed the GIT and I've called it up. I want to be sure that it's the right thing. So can I share my screen? Quickly share the screen or wait till finish?
Yes, sir.
Can I share my screen?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm sharing my screen now.
Yeah, this is the one. This is good.
Good. Okay. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else facing issues or unable to find it? Is it safe to assume everyone is good? Okay.
Yeah, good.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So now we will, I want you guys to follow along. So whatever we're going to do now, I would like you to follow along as much as you can. So you can learn these basic commands that we will learn today. So there are a few basic commands that I will go through. So you know what are the capabilities that you can do from the terminal, aside from the basic other stuff that you might know already. So the first thing you can do on a terminal is actually to create a directory. Not using the mouse and the context menu, you can actually do it from the terminal. So at the moment, I'm the cursor is in the line, and this is my location. The location here is TLD, which is my personal folder on this machine. So I will cd to projects. I will go somewhere where I can. Yeah. So I'll be here. This is the folder that I would like to stay in. So the first command we will learn is make directory, mk directory. And make directory basically will create a directory for you. So I will create the first one, which is root folder. So if I create that folder, it doesn't mean that I'm moved to that folder. I just created it within the current folder. So to see what is in the current folder, I can use the ls command, list command. And this list command will give the list of what is in that folder. So in that May 30, 2023 folder, I have the JS demo, I have HTML demo, and I have that root folder that I just created and the to-do app. So ls will give us a list of the command of the items inside the current folder. If you would like to see the hidden files as well, so for instance, if I cd to HTML or to-do app, and I do ls, I know that I have more folders there. So to see everything, we can configure it through a flag, which is -a, -all. So this gives us that, for instance, this .get folder was a hidden folder. Now we are getting everything. So if we clear basically clears the console from the previous commands. So far we are able to create a directory using mk there, and we are able to see what is inside that directory. Sorry, we see whatever in our current folder or current directory using the ls command. Also, we can use the PWD. So PWD, present working directory. This gives us our absolute path. So the path from the root directory, users, my username, and so on, all the way to where my current folder is. So you can see at the moment I'm in to-do app, and this is the path to the to app. So PWD will give us the present working directory. Where are we at the moment? So back, if we would like to go back, we can do cd ... Remember, ... means the parent, go one level up. So if I go cd ... I go back to the May 30 folder. And if I would like to cd inside the folder, I can do cd change directory to maybe the root directory that we just created. So root directory. Oh, sorry, cd root folder. So cd and the folder name will go one level down, ... will go one level up. Any questions so far?
Yeah, hello, Mia.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry, man. Yeah, well, maybe it's a question. I want to know the first thing that you do when the screen comes up. I didn't get that part. Because it showed me the dollar sign. Now, do I have to log on something or anything like that? You know, when you bring up the GIT screen, it comes up with maybe leads to the root directory. I don't know. But
Maybe share your screen.
Can I quickly share the screen and show you what I'm seeing? Hello?
Yes. So
Yeah, what
you
I'm saying-
see, yeah, hold on. So now this is your user folder. This is the TLD that we talked about. Now this
Okay.
$sign is just a mark for where you can write your commands.
Okay.
So like here, when you do cd root folder, and then it's giving you a feedback, there is no such folder or directory.
Okay.
Because you can first cd maybe to like documents or projects folder, like you have a projects here. Maybe you can cd inside that projects folder and then create your, first you need to make directory before you can cd to it.
Okay.
It's like when you do the mouse or from the GUI, first you have to go inside the folder that you would like to create new folder in, and then you create the new folder. So now if you do mk there, and then root folder, mk there, make directory. No, most of the commands in the command line will be one line. Sorry, one word. There will be no spaces.
Okay.
Yeah, spaces in the terminal, it's being treated as separation of like when we studied the anatomy, I said there is command, subcommand, parameters, and flags. So spaces are being treated as the separator between those. So usually the commands will have only one, no spaces. So mk there is one word.
Okay. Okay.
mk there. Yeah, and then space. Now you need to provide it with a parameter. You need to make directory. Then space, the parameter is the directory name. So you give it a name. So mk there, and then maybe space root folder now. Yeah. Now, if you hit enter, this is creating a folder for you, but doesn't change your current location. To change your current location, you have to use the cd command, change directory. So space, cd space, and then root folder. This takes you inside that folder. Now notice this.
Yeah, it's on the root folder now.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and so on. Okay.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no worries. So I'll repeat some of that. Yeah, go ahead.
Could you help? I didn't use Git previously in terminal, and I can't understand. Maybe I
Do you
show
want
my
to?
screen.
Yeah, go ahead. So this is not about Git. I'm using Git Bash with the Windows machine for a reason. Windows comes with a different terminal. Remember, we said every terminal has a shell behind it, right? So the Windows has a different shell. It's called PowerShell, actually. So this PowerShell is giving a terminal which has a different syntax. So for instance, if you try to use some of what I'm going to show, it will not work. The Git Bash is Unix-based terminal that gives us the same ability that what we do in Mac.
I'm in terminal.
Yeah, exactly. So in the terminal, you when you say CD to where, like you have to CD to somewhere.
Yeah, I write CD, but
where do you want to go?
Was nothing. Huh?
Yeah, because you didn't tell
Hello?
the change directory where to go, right?
Hello?
So you got to tell like where do you want to go? First of all, like you're in your root directory now. Where do you want to go? To your desktop, to your documents, to your applications? You have to specify.
Desktop.
I think there's a typo. Yeah. So if you go to desktop, now you see the update that just happened, that you are here on your desktop. Now inside the desktop or your maybe you have a project folder. I don't know where is it, but you can also go to that and create your root directory for this practice that we are doing.
So I can write CD and then in any folder, yeah. And
but this folder has to be has to exist to be able to change to it.
Understand.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I understand.
No worries.
I think.
No worries. Okay. So let me repeat some of what I just said. So again, I'll cd ... and we said cd tilde takes us to the home directory. So the home directory is basically the user directory, which is in my case it's this home directory. In your case, it will be whatever your username is in Windows. So in there, I can cd to somewhere. I have to go to somewhere, change directly to somewhere. So in my case, I was going to projects, and inside projects /, I will be navigating to practice. Sorry, not practice. Projects node May 30 class. Now I moved from my home directory, from my personal user folder to that folder.
For more information on how to connect your claim digital.
Okay. So now inside that folder, I have created using the mkdir command, the root folder. So I have created a folder, I called it root folder. When I create that, I get it, and that's it. It's created for me. To go inside that folder, I have to use again the cd command, root folder that I just created, and this moves me inside that folder. So to navigate in and out of folders, you use the cd command. Remember, dot means your current location or your current directory. Dot, the parent directory. So if I do cd dot, as if I'm going to the parent, which is one level up. It's similar to when we go from, now we are inside that folder, root directory. So when I do cd, as if I clicked back. cd dot, as if I'm going back with the back arrow. To create a folder inside the, let's create another folder inside the root folder. So we can do mkdir folder A. And we can do mkdir folder B. If I go to that folder now, I'll see two folders. Now to find what kind of folders or files exist within a folder, we can use the ls command. And this gives us a list of what is inside the folder that we are currently on. If I would like to know what folder I'm currently on, I can use the BWD, present working directory, and it gives me the full path to that location. Any questions so far? Okay. So if I cd inside folder A and I create another folder, so I'll create another folder A2. Now, if I do ls, I find that we have only one folder A2, and so on. So let me use the clear command to clear the console. Now, inside this folder A, I would like to create a file. But before I do that, and I go into creating a file and adding text to a file. Any questions?
How to create a space in folder?
Perfect question. So let's assume I would like to create folder ABC2, something like this, right? As I mentioned, spaces are treated as separation between the command, subcommand, parameters, and flags. So if you have any parameter, this is considered parameter, right? Because you're passing the folder name to the make directory, right? So this is considered now as a parameter or argument. So to include spaces in that, you have two ways. One of them is simply to wrap it in single or double quotes. So if you wrap the parameter that contains spaces with single or double quotes, it will be treated as one entity. So if I hit enter and I do ls, I get that folder created already, and the other folder was there from before, and we can see it here. We have that folder created with the spaces. So using quotes or double quotes is one way. The other way, you can use the backslash to skip the character. So you are telling the terminal, don't consider this as a space. Don't consider it as a special characters. I need it as part of the current string. So here, if I say folder ABC3, I need to come here and say forward backslash, and here I need to put backslash. So these two backslashes gives me the ability or it instructs the command line or the terminal to ignore those spaces. So if now I hit enter, I do ls, same thing. I get that folder created, no problems. So you either wrap the name or the string that has spaces with quotes or double quotes, or you skip those special characters with the backslashes. On a side note, in our day-to-day projects or practice or whatever, we better not to use spaces. If you really need that separation, you can either use the camel case, similar to what we did with the variable and function names in JavaScript, or you use underscore. It will be much easier overall dealing with the terminal. Okay. Okay, fantastic. Any other questions?
So it's better way just to avoid the spaces in the naming
Exactly.
of folders, yes.
As much as possible. Sometimes you can't, so you'll have to use the double quotes or you have to skip the file name, but preferably to avoid them if you're the one creating them and there's no naming convention that stops you from doing that.
Is it good like using underscores or something like this, or dashes, except of
So,
like
yeah, dashes or underscores are okay.
Calling them, the ones you have created with the space, calling them would be like the same, like creating them.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on. Then now the commands that I'm going to teach you now, the few commands I taught you so far, mkdir, cd, ls, pwd, and the dot, and with the dot, those are the most commonly used that we will see day in, day out in our practice, right? However, there are a few other commands. If you ended up a backend engineer, which this course, you will need to know them, because potentially if you are a backend engineer, you will be taking care of some sort of a server. So you might want to access the server through the terminal where your files are hosted or where your application is running. So it's not, it's very common that you would be dealing with the terminal if you're in the backend for a significant amount of time or very frequently, unlike the front end. If you're just a front-end engineer, you'll still do interact with the terminal, but not as like the backend guys. So I'll show you a few things. If you don't get it, that's fine. Like, I will not stress too much on them. This is just more for your information, okay? So the first one here, which is echo. So echo is basically, it's from the name, it's to echo something, right? So if I say echo hello world, it will just type it to the terminal. It's echoing whatever I'm giving it. Whatever I pass to echo will reflect on here. But this is not super helpful. What's really helpful if we do, we are inside folder A, by the way. So if we do echo hello world, and we use the greater than sign, which is acting as an arrow. In this case, it's pointing to something. And we say greeting.txt. So what does this mean? I'm saying echo this string that I passed to echo as a parameter into this file. So go ahead and write this into this file. So when I hit enter, I don't know why it's not executing. It's not taking my command for some reason. Let me, okay. What I did now, because this was hanging, kind of hanging. So I used Control C. So Control C will stop the execution of any command. In case you have any hanging or stuck command, you can use Control on the keyboard, Control+C to exit that process. Okay. So if let's repeat that command again. Echo hello world into greetings.txt. Now, if I head to the folder, first of all, I'll find that created. And if I open it on my machine, I'll find that text in there. So echo with sometimes they call it chevron, arrow, greater than, all of those are angle bracket, all of those are the same thing. So this is one thing. But if I do the same command, hello world 2 to the same file, notice that we will have that, sorry, not here, here. Notice that this, did I close it? Sorry, I shouldn't. Notice that this file now, the content was replaced. So the single arrow will always replace whatever is in the file. It will erase anything previously there and replace it with the new text. So append, using the echo command, we use double chevron. So double chevron will append to the existing content. So basically you can see now we have 2 lines. You guys are able to see my screen or?
No.
Just the term. Oh, somebody should have told me. Okay, let me repeat that because I was showing another window. So I was showing, okay, let me repeat. I don't know why you guys are too quiet. Okay, let me repeat that. I was showing first hello world with one chevron would override basically the file content. So here it's hello world 2. It used to be 1. And then if I replace it with some additional text, so I'm adding more text to this statement, and we are opening it again. Notice it was totally replaced. If I would like to append, insert a new line, we use the double chevron, and it does exactly that. It just append a new line, and so on. So single chevron will override, 2 will append. Okay, so we can use the echo command to override or append to a file. Now, to read the content of the file on the terminal itself, we can use the cat command. So we can use cat, and then here we have the greetings that we just created. And notice we get back what was in the file into the terminal. Cat also can be used to write to the file, but the good thing about cat, it uses continuous mode. So for instance, if I do cat chevron to the greetings.txt, notice that I can write to this file now, and it will be saved. Now, once I'm done and I would like to exit, I can use the Control D command. Sorry, 1 second. I'm not sure what just happened. Let me close this and open it again. So let's quickly cd back to projects, node, may, root folder, folder A, and we were doing cat to greetings.txt, and I was writing in terminal. And we said Control D to exit the edit mode. If I go back, whether I can read now with the cat only without the chevron. Now notice the text that was written in the terminal is now back, is saved in the file, and we can see it also here. So this is what I wrote in the terminal using the cat command. So with the cat command, you can actually edit a file. And also you can append the file using the double chevron. So you will start seeing patterns now. So if we do this, this is a new line. And then if we use Control D, and then we go and see that greetings, you will see here we have added to the existing file. So whatever I typed after, it was just added. So cat can allow us to read, write in continuous mode to the files, and we can use Control D to exit the edit mode. Now this might not be the best way to edit files. So if you are curious about how to use the terminal to better edit files without any other programs or graphical user interface programs, you can search Nano or Vim. So for instance, on my machine, I have Vim. Vim is one of the command line tools that you can edit files. So if I edit greetings on Vim, notice that I will have like almost like an terminal editor. So here I can basically maybe enter a new line and so on. Vim has a special keys. So it's not like a standard way of editing text. You have to learn it. It has some learning curve, but it's out there. Nano is the same thing. It's another tool that you can use to edit. I used to work at some point last year as a backend engineer, and I used to do a lot of editing on the server, and all what I had was the terminal. Like they're on those virtual machines where we hosted the application, and this is very common. It was a Linux machine, and all what I got was the terminal. So I had to learn this Vim to be able to be more efficient, editing the files on the server, and dealing with whatever requirements I was getting at that time. Okay, so let's save and exit.
I have a
Now
question.
Yes, go for it.
I just like, based on what you said, isn't that not the jobs like the software engineer? Wouldn't that just be forwarded to the IT network engineer though? Like, why would you have to follow, do this if they're going to be managing that typically in a company?
It depends on the company hierarchy. If you're in a small company, potentially you will do, and you're a backend engineer, potentially you will do the backend coding work, and also you will manage the server, and potentially you will be also doing the DevOps or at a small scale, the DevOps work, which is provisioning, development, deployment, and so on. So if you're in a small company, potentially the backend engineer is doing a few additional tasks, not just the coding. And it's almost an expectation that you know how to deal with the Linux if you're a backend engineer, or command the terminal in general. It's almost a requirement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But another one question, does these files like need to be secured or something? Like it's like easy access to terminal, like to take some data like from these files. Could we like need to secure it or something else?
Yes, of course. So when I say all what I had was the terminal, it's not like I have this machine in my house. It was in the cloud, like AWS at that time, Amazon Web Services.
Okay.
And to log in to those machines, there is a protocol called SSH, Secure Shell, and basically you have to have a secret key in order to be able to log into that machine first of all, and your IP has to be allowed by the security group to be able to log into this machine. So it's not like an open public
or something else.
Yeah, exactly. You have to have a public and private key. The public key will be stored on the server, the private key will be on your machine, and only then, not only that, also your IP, the IP of your machine, the internet protocol address of your machine will have to be whitelisted or be permitted to access that machine. So
Okay,
there are
only
multiple
one machine
layers
could
of
access.
Exactly. So if my IP is allowed, I can first of all, this is one gate, and then if I'm allowed to access that machine, it's not. We didn't stop there. There is another handshaking protocol through the SSH secure shell that allows you to actually connect to the machine. So there is at least 2 or 3 steps before you are able to access the files on that machine or that machine. So it's not like publicly available or something like that. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Good to know.
No worries. Okay, let's move on. So we learned a little bit about the echo command, the cat command. Let's talk about like we created folders and files. Let's see now how can we delete folders and files. So to remove a folder or a file, we can use the rm command, and then we can basically choose any file that we would like to delete. And now I'm deleting greeting without an S. So if I hit enter, so there's no such file. Well, let's see. So we have greeting. That's correct. So rm.
You just need text. You just print text, not txt.
Oh, sorry. So this is txt. Now, if we do ls again, notice that greeting is deleted. This is a good time to talk about trash, the recycle bin or the trash in our computers, right? So we used to, if I delete a file, I have an opportunity to go and recover it from the recycle bin if you are a Windows user, or from the trash if you are a Mac user. Now, this is not the case when you deal with the terminal, because the trash concept is an operating system concept. In the sense, one second. So in the sense that, bear with me. So what happens, you have a file and you have on the desk, so you have your desk, if this is your hard disk, and you have a file on there. And now you decided to delete that file. So if you decided to delete this file from your hard disk, the operating system is a little bit generous and would create for you a place. So this is your folder, this is your folder, and this is the trash or recycle bin. So the operating system, which is overarching this whole thing. So this is the operating system. So we have the OS here. And let's make it lighter. So we have the operating system here orchestrating the process of you deleting your file. So instead of getting rid of it, the operating system would move it to another folder called recycle bin. So technically, when you delete something on Windows or Mac, you're taking a copy or moving it from the current folder to the trash bin system folder. So the operating system is giving you a chance. If you would go back and say recover, it goes back and put it in your folder. In the terminal, this layer is not there. This layer is not there. This guy is not there. So when you delete something, it's gone. It's gone meaning it's gone. It's not going to be back. You will not have the chance to recover it. There are other advanced ways that you can recover any deleted files or folders, because technically on your hard disk, so this is a side note, on your hard disk, the file, when you delete the file, actually you're not deleting it, you're just removing it from a table. So every operating system is keeping track of what we call file tables. And those file tables are simply tables that has like the file name, like basically you have the file name versus the location on disk. So when we delete something, we are not actually deleting it physically because it's still there, but it's the entry for it, it's removed. So for instance, if I have the file name as file A and the location on the disk, I don't know, 00 whatever, something, there is an address there. I don't know the format, it will be binary format. All what the operating system is doing is actually taking it out from the table, but the file is still physically there. It can be recovered through some advanced tools unless some other file was written on top of it. So if you write something on top of your old data, the old data is technically gone forever now. So the file deletion process is a little bit complicated. It's not straightforward. So if we are talking about the GUI, your menu and right-click delete, with the normal operating system, basically it's moving it from your current folder to the trash bin, changing its address. If you are deleting it from the trash bin, now it's deleted from the file table, from the file system table. It's physically there until it's over, that space is required and it's being written above. Once it's written above, it's gone. Okay. In the terminal, there is no that trash bin concept. It goes like the terminal will right away delete the address and the file name from the file system, from the file system, from the file table altogether. So this is extremely important because it's very famous or very common that someone deletes something by mistake on the terminal and they want to recover it. Not easy. Like it's doable, but it's not straightforward and it might be impossible. So keep that in mind. Okay.
Sorry. I
Yes.
have bad internet today. It's like electronic voice. I hear you. when I can watch these lessons in recording?
I'll upload it tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries. Okay. So back to the list of stuff that we have here. Now, if I would like to remove a folder, I can use rm there with the folder name. So if I use folder ABC2, it's gone. Now this command is usable if the folder is empty. So let's go ahead and put something inside that folder, the other folder, and try again. So we will put something inside that folder. So we will cd to folder ABC3, and there we will make another directory. We will call it folder C. And inside folder C, we will cd inside folder C. And we will touch a file. So we will create some file. So we will oh, I didn't explain the touch command, sorry. The touch command allows you to create empty files. So if I do touch some file .txt, it will create the file, but it will keep it empty. So touch would be doing that for you. So now I have created file inside a folder and a folder inside a folder. So let's go back. So now we are in
Ask a
folder
quick
A.
question.
Yes, sure.
What if you just like make empty, like with echo, but before like this chevron mark, we just use like just empty string. Is it will be like empty or not? Or this is
Like
not meaning
echo?
like this one.
Like this?
Like echo, then like empty string, then chevron.
Like that?
Yes, an empty string.
Yeah, it will create, like it will create some file for you for sure. Empty
Oh,
file.
okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So now back to folder C. So I'll keep it here on the side so you can see it while we're doing what we're doing. So you can see the so inside root folder, folder A, we have folder ABC3, we have folder C, and we have some file. So this folder ABC3 is not really empty, right? It's a folder that has nested files and folders. So let's try to remove it with the rm there. So if I do rm there folder ABC3, it will refuse. So rm there is good for empty directories. But now how we can remove this? We remove it through what we call recursive process. So we need to tell the remove command that as you go inside the folder, if you find the folder, go inside that folder. And if you find the folder, go another inside all those folders until you find files, delete those files, and come back and delete the empty folder now, and go back and empty the empty folder now, and so on. So it's recursive process. Go all the way inside, empty, go back, empty, go back, empty, and until the main folder that we want to delete. So for that, we use the rm command -rf. This is a configuration flag recursive force. So go ahead and force the recursive behavior, and then we will give it the folder name. So this folder. So this will go inside this folder, delete this file, go back. Now this folder is empty, delete that folder, go back. This folder is now empty, delete this folder. So it's recursive process. So now if I do this, it's gone. Of course, we didn't see the in and out of that, but this is what happens behind the scene. So it's very common to see those kind of flags. R, F. F will always stand for force. R will stand always for recursive. So these kind of common flags, you will start seeing a pattern, basically, right? So this is the remove command. We have one more command, or maybe two, and then we should be good. So the second, if we cd outside folder A, so let's ls. So we have folder A and a folder B, and let's basically remove folder A. So we can. So we'll do rf -rf folder A, and then we will remove folder B. Again, it's not empty, so we'll have to use -rf folder B. And now root folder is back again empty. So let's create a fresh folder, or a fresh file. So we'll touch new file.txt, and we will create a folder. So mkdir new folder 1, mkdir new folder 2, and we could have give it a list, like we can do new folder 3 and so on. It creates, we can give it a comma separated list, and it will, space separated list, and it will create multiple ones in one go. Now we have multiple folders in this thing, and you can see it here. Now I would like to move this this file from root folder to folder 1. So we'll use the move command. So let's now experiment with the move command. So we will move new file.txt to new folder 1. So when we do that, notice that the file is now inside folder 1. So the mv move takes 2 parameters, the source and the destination. And for simplicity, I use the file name and a folder, but you can mix and match. You can make a nested folders with files, or nested whatever you want. You can do whatever you like. We can also move, like we can move new folder 3 or 3 into new folder 2, for instance. And now it's gone. It's inside here. So we can move folders, files, whatever we want, using the mv command. Now notice that all the commands on the command line, when it gets to big folders, now we are dealing with almost empty folders and empty files. But if we have a heavy folders with large sizes, using the terminal will be way faster. Whether you are deleting or moving or copying, terminal will be way faster than the operating system. So this is basically to move folders. What if I would like to copy? So I can copy using the cp command copy, and we can say maybe folder 1. We would like it to copy to the destination. The destination would be a new name, basically, right? So we can copy to maybe the same place, right? So we can say same place, folders / I would like to take a copy inside folder 2. Now it says new folder 1 is a directory not copied. So this suggests that you should use the recursive method. So we can do -r, and it does that for us. So now I have, because folder 1 is empty, sorry. So we don't have anything inside folder 1, or we had this guy. Why didn't this work? Oh, yeah, sorry. So folder 1 has new file, so we got that here. So let's try with a different, let's add a new file basically here, just to see that. Again, new folder A, and let's get rid of this. So whatever is in folder 1 needs to be copied to folder 2. If we repeat this command, notice we get that here. So cp to copy stuff across. Also, the rename of a file, we can use the mv command. So if I touch new file to rename .txt, so we get that file here. But then if I would like to rename it, I can use move and then new file to rename. Sorry, new file to rename, and then the new file name after rename .txt, and notice that the file got renamed. So if you just provide the move command with file names, it will consider it as a rename operation. Okay. Any questions so far? So we kind of explored the touch command to create new files. It has other usages, but we will not touch on that. We will not talk about that today. Then the echo, cat, rm or remove, rm there to remove empty directories, move, file to rename, or move folder to file or file to folders, whatever. CB, same thing. Any questions about these? As I mentioned, those commands that I'm just summarized, those are going to be beneficial for you in the future. I'm just trying to bring them to your attention.
So I just have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Like, when would you want to do this as opposed to doing generically via the GUI?
As I mentioned, when you are dealing with a Linux machine where your application is deployed and you access to this machine, or yeah, basically you have no other ways to deal with the operating system or the file system. It's only the terminal. All what you have is the terminal. So all what we are discussing now, if you're on your computer and you'd like to move this folder to this folder, or this file, rename it or whatever, you have the mouse and you can do it. But when you manage a Linux machine where your files and projects is running, you don't have that luxury. All what you have is the terminal. Dealing with the cloud engineering, like anything on the cloud in terms of like the DevOps or development operations, some others would call it IT, all that, most like 90% you're dealing with the terminal. So it's very important to know these basic operations: opening a file, copying a file, moving a file, deleting a file, moving folders around, knowing where you are using the PWD, all these simple commands that we are discussing now. It's very important. And just to give you a perspective, dealing with the terminal is like we are scratching the surface here, like we're just introducing you to the concepts, the basic concepts, right? But there is books that are 600 pages that summarizes the available commands for you. So if you search for Linux commands, for instance, maybe I mistyped it. I don't know if this is a complete sheet, but like this is even not complete. I don't know if I have still this book, but bear with me if I have it. There we go. This is a 200, and this is like a light book, by the way. This is 268 pages book that talks about so many things that you can do on Linux. If you really get into that part of the DevOps engineering, you will need to get familiar with some of those, or at least know how to navigate your way. And the basics that I'm explaining here about the anatomy and the basic commands should make you familiar. If you look at any of those commands, you can tell, like for instance here, CB file. Now you understand, okay, CB is copy, file is the file that I need to copy, and so on. So you can understand, even if you see something that for the first time, you can comprehend or you can understand what it might be doing, plus the research for sure. So yeah. Okay, so a couple of last commands I would like to show you. One is history. So history basically prints the most recent commands that you have used on the terminal. So here, these are the most recent commands. And you can see I configured my history to store up to 5,000 commands, last commands. So these were the 2,500, whatever. So clear is another one to clear your terminal. Few things to retrieve the previous commands from what you have been doing. You can use the up and arrow down. So here I'm going through the previous commands that I have been doing using my up arrow on the keyboard. I go backward with the down arrow. The other good feature about the terminal, but let me disable something here so you can see. Or you know what, that's fine. So ignore the menu that will show up in a second. But for instance, if I do CD new, ignore this guy for a second here. So if I do CD new and I hit tab, it suggests the next character. So if I do tab one more time, it's giving me a list of what might be the autocomplete options for me. So now if I say file, new folder, I hit tab one more time, I hit tab one more time, it's telling me, okay, which one or two. So if I say one, this is basically the option that I have. So using tab can speed up your typing on the keyboard. So for instance, if I say get push, and then I have, CD folder or new, you see it's trying to help me to complete. I'm hitting tab and it's completing the rest. So tab will try to help you to autocomplete. You can, if you typed something, so if you typed something and you feel like you would like to delete, you can go back and forth with the arrow, and then you can delete with the backspace or with the delete button. So you can, the 4 arrows are really useful. You can go back and forth to amend or change the command that you're typing. You can go front or backward, forward or backward to navigate through the commands that you just typed, so you don't need to retype every time whatever you did. So sometimes it's very common that we type something and it doesn't work and we need to go back and change a letter. So you don't type the whole thing, you just go back and change that letter that you would like to change, and so on. In most of the command, like almost all the command line tools will give you this help flag. So the help flag usually, the help flag usually will, which is, where are we with the help? Yeah, here we go. So here, so node help, for instance, is giving us like a summary of the possible options, what we can use, like a quick guide for some of the commands that we can use with this syntax. You can get an extended version of any application. So let me clear this, using the man command. Man is manual. So if I say manual get, this is literally the manual for the get. And you see here, it's a get manual, name, name, and then this is the hierarchy of all the possible options within get, and then the description. And then as I scroll down, I'm going through the documentation. And you see this column here. If I hit space, it's moving one page at a time. So space will move one page at a time. And then if I would like to quit from those pages and then manual, I can hit Q for quit. So you can retrieve the manual even if you are in the terminal. So again, if you're you don't have the luxury to access the internet on one of the server machines or whatever reason, you can still get the whole manual of that tool while you're still on the terminal. Also, another trick is using the Control R. So Control R will give you the option to search in your command history. So here, if I say get space, notice that it's suggesting that I might have typed before. The most recent command that has get on it was command-v. Maybe if I do cd space, cd space, maybe dot, this is one of the commands. If I do cd new folder, nothing is matching. If I do mv new, notice that it's bringing the most recent command here. If I would like to accept this result, I can just simply hit tab or hit enter and it will accept that command. So you have the ability to search your command history using the Control R. Okay. If you would like to exit anything on the terminal anytime, the fastest way is Control C. So Control C, like you have something stuck, you start typing and you don't want to continue, and you don't want to backspace all this, you just do Control C, and it exits that operation. So we talked about the Control C. We talked about the Control R. We talked about the navigation. Any questions about those and autocomplete?
Is there a possible way where you can do a miniature example of like a real world problem? Just kind of hard to remember all of this. Just
Yeah, we will. Like, as I mentioned, the last few commands like MV, CP, you will not see me using them. But like some of the other stuff, we will use it a lot. Like when we get to now talk about NPM, you will see me using the command line. And you don't need to remember any of this. I will be uploading the class notes, the handouts. So you will have reference to all what we just discussed. So you'll have access to this guy here, and whatever we talked about is actually here. And it's explained with some notes. And also I added some resources for additional reading. So don't worry about memorizing any of this. You need to know that it's out there, and then you go back and find the reference whenever you need it. Okay.
Yeah,
Any questions? Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, let's go for like 15 minutes break, and then we come back with a real start now to the node with the node package manager. So yeah, take a break, and then I'll see you in 15. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Hey guys, are you back?
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
Any questions before we get started?
Well, what was the question? Did you ask to respond to something or?
No, I was asking if there's any questions.
Okay. Oh, I guess actually my question is like, does it matter which Linux, like Ubuntu, Mint, or Solus, or?
So when we talk about those, yeah, those are the distributions. They might have some features, or whatever we are talking about now is like the common stuff, the basic stuff that exists for any of them.
Oh, okay, so it's universal.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay, let's see one thing on the class. If I uploaded this already or not. Okay, so there is one section. Maybe I will share my screen. Let me know when you can see my screen. So, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so there is this practice where you can basically between the notes that I will upload and those exercises, I might add a few other exercises for you. But yeah, but those should be sufficient if you'd like to practice after the class. This is meant for that. So you know. Okay, and yeah. So this is a side. Let's talk about. Okay, so again, I'm starting now. Now we have, like, we are almost halfway through the course, right? So the remaining half of the course will be focusing on Node, and that Node means we will talk about Node, the database MongoDB. So these two things will be next. Each one of those has several modules, but this is what we are starting next. So maybe we can take a moment now and ask if anyone has any clarifications about the old stuff that we covered already: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, the CLI, anything, any concept that you don't understand, anything that you feel not clear. We can take a moment now and discuss these things before we get started with a new topic, because we will shift the gear significantly. So.
About the project, like we need maybe a little guide, and like I'm doing now, for example, a website. I can share it if you like. So are you, what are we expecting? Like I am working like with Lorem Ipsum, something like that, not functional at the end of the.
No, nobody bothers about the content. It's really up to you.
Okay.
But now since I hope everyone is paying attention to this question, because I would like to bring up an important aspect on the expectations. I'm not the one who is going to pass or fail you in this course. It's going to be Pablo or Mitok, depending on who's setting on the presentations. However, I would like to bring you some of the past experiences with other students. So some students came to the presentation day, and all what they had was the first half of the course, meaning they came with an HTML, CSS, JavaScript project, and that's it. And those were given a chance to correct course and submit a proper project. And whoever didn't manage to correct course, basically they failed, because the course is Node course, right? All what we have been covering is trying to set you up for success, giving you the foundational knowledge to be able to make a full stack project, basically, right? So the expectation that you have elements in your project. So your project must have MongoDB. Okay, so you must have a data persistence. If you're not talking, please mute yourself. Okay, so your project must have a piece related to data persistence, MongoDB. Also, your project must have a piece related to Node server. Okay, plus, of course, the front end. Now, the front end, the reason I put it as one block is because it can be anything. It can be, it's up to you. You can choose to do vanilla. You can do not this one. You can do JavaScript, CSS, HTML. You can choose to do, if you have experience with any other framework, you can do React if you want. It's up to you, right? So front end, there's no much stress on what technologies you're using in the front end. Actually, if you use React, it will be a bonus. If you come up with anything that's not in the backend, so let's split that into two pieces. So we have the backend, and we have the front end. So as I said, front end, if you go with something different than what we taught in the class, it will not be a problem. It will be considered a bonus that you taught yourself something new or whatever. So front end is okay to be anything, whether it's the vanilla stuff that we studied or React, for instance, or you have experience with Angular, or you have experience with Vue.js or Solid or Svelte, whatever, like any framework will work. Also CSS, it doesn't really matter. You use vanilla CSS as we taught you in the class. You use Bootstrap, Material UI, Tailwind, Chakra, whatever you choose, up to you. Backend, like it's a must. It's a must have. You cannot do anything else. Like you cannot come with a PHP project or WordPress project or Java project. It's not going to be accepted. Okay, so keep that in mind. Any questions about that? Anything here is not clear what I'm referring to?
Database should be MongoDB.
Yes.
Okay.
If you want to switch to a different database, you need to bring it up now, like ASAP, to get approval from Pablo that this will be the case. But the expectation is MongoDB. The one thing that cannot be negotiated is building your backend in Node, in JavaScript. Like we can negotiate this piece with Pablo. But
I just
Node,
can ask him.
Yeah, you can ask him if you want, but Node is not option to negotiate. The certificate is for being.
I'm using Node.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yeah, I can talk with him. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So if you would like to use MySQL, what is in mind? What do you have in mind?
Right now I'm using Postgres.
Postgres, fantastic. But if you know Postgres and you're learning Mongo, I recommend to build it in Mongo because you're coming to this course and you're trying to learn something new, right? So I would still recommend, especially we will deal with ORM, right? We will use ORM to deal with Mongo. So technically, the database is kind of abstracted away from us. We don't get into the nitty-gritty of dealing with the database directly through SQL script or anything like that. So I would still recommend from your learning, like from your knowledge-based perspective, is to deal with Mongo. You will have one additional type of database that you know, if you know already Postgres.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you feel like you're more confident with Postgres and this will give you an advantage during presenting your project, ask for that permission now.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Like my question is, so what you're saying is all of this diagram you're representing right now, when we do our project, it has to include all these elements and it has to be an equal share, or can it just be like 25% Mongo and then maybe 75% JavaScript, HTML, and CSS?
It depends on what you're doing, right? At the end of the day, you should have a server, and we will see that the minimum that you can do is actually a CRUD application, like you have a few endpoints where you can exchange data with the front end. Then you will have a database layer where you persist the data. So this is how big or small the project, you have to do the minimum. So for instance, I will do at least a couple of projects in the coming, after we cover the basics, I show you some examples, we will start building projects like what we did with the To-Do app. So in that, for instance, you will see me creating like a CRUD application, create, delete, update, and read operations. So the minimum expectation is to come up with a CRUD operation, CRUD application, where you can persist data, read the data, delete the data, update the data. But if you come, like the students in the past that came with just this piece, the front end, they were asked to go back and try to finish their projects because it didn't contain the backend piece, right? And same thing, you cannot really demonstrate a good project as a Node developer or a web developer without having to include the front end. So the minimum expectation is to create a CRUD application that these 4 main operations are covered, right? And one thing to consider, it's not about passing or failing, forget about passing or failing the course for a minute here. Think about this as a dedicated effort that you will put forward, and later on you will put it in your profile, and you might be using it actually to demo your knowledge to potential employers. So just so you know, in interviews, there are 2 categories of interviews, right? There are the interviews for the experienced people or developers. And in those kind of interviews, they will be asked about specific concepts or advanced concepts, stuff related to their day-to-day work, maybe bug fixes, performance issues, the practical stuff that they deal with every day, okay? And then there's another category of interviews for the newcomers to the industry, whether it's a student, a recent grad, or a career convert, or whatever. And those are not expected to have that much of experience. They don't have that, like they never been through a performance issue or cross-browser compatibility issue or a complex bug, for instance, right? So all what they have, actually one of 2 things. Either they are they can demonstrate great skill in algorithms and data structures, so they can solve complex problems or data structure related or algorithmic related, like sorting, like dealing with a queue, dealing with a stack, dealing with a tree data structure, etc. Or they can demonstrate their abilities through a project. So the better the project, the better you are able to represent your skills. So if your project is really small and lacking features, it will demonstrate your lack of knowledge, right? And if it's really rich or solid or clean, and it has decent amount of features, or at least a reasonable amount of features, it will represent your skills as well, and it might get you a job. So keep that in mind. Forget about the passing or failing now. This is not the, I think this is not the goal. The main goal is to create a piece of code or a piece of project that you can put in your profile and show to the employers. Okay.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's like what you just explained, like being able to explain all these concepts, of course, to the employer. It's not exactly like here's a piece of code and here's A, B, C, D, choose the right answer.
Exactly.
So thank you though.
No worries. And on a side note, one thing I learned the hard way, nobody brought up to me when I came first to this industry, was there are 2 types of interviews. As I mentioned, one for the senior guys or the experienced professionals, and one for the newcomers. However, in the big companies, or like if you're targeting like a big company, and I'm not talking about just Microsoft or Amazon or those big companies, even the mid-sized companies, there's some of them, like many of them, would adopt a certain style of interviews, which is predominantly based on your ability to solve algorithmic problems. So what I mentioned about demonstrating a project, whether you're senior or junior or newcomer or whatever, this is potentially meant to small level companies that they care about seeing your practical knowledge. The mid to large scale companies, it's almost always that they will screen you through problem solving skills. And one big thing everyone needs to be aware of, that I learned the hard way, I didn't know about it until I had my very first interview, and I was asked to code doubly linked list. And this was my first time to hear about what is doubly linked list, right? So a big topic called data structures and algorithms. If you search for that, you will find a lot of resources, whether paid or unpaid, talking about data structures and algorithms and preparing for the interviews. And one of the big websites that that's very famous in this domain called LeetCode. So LeetCode is basically a platform where you can basically practice. I don't know if we can access without. I'm trying to explore. Where is it started? Yeah, something like that. They give you the option to basically solve problems, right? So for instance, sum of two, and there is a paid premium version and there is the free version. Not everything is available in the free version. So for instance, this is some like a very trivial example for the kind of problems that you might get in an interview for those kind of companies, where they give you a prompt, they give you examples, they give you constraints, and they ask you to solve the problem. And this platform here, and there are so many platforms like that, but this is the most famous one. You can choose the language that you like, and you start coding. And then based on the solution, you can run it and you can get some feedback. So it's very famous that you get advice to go to these kind of platforms and practice your data structure and algorithms skills before going to an interview. Like here, you can see they are talking about Amazon Spring 30 high frequency, whatever. Like you will find packages also for preparing for specifically to Microsoft, or preparing specifically to Amazon, preparing specifically to certain companies. So this is something to be aware of. Anyway, it was a small question and I extended so much, but that's fine. Any other questions related to the project or anything we started so far?
In your opinion, just like, what would be a project that would normally stand out to a general amount, so like to mid-sized or entry-level programming job company? Like what project would be more impressive in your opinion? It's a very hard question to answer. On the surface, a calculator can be an impressive project. Like to create a calculator is like, we use the calculators to the point we took it for granted. But try to program a calculator yourself. Try to create a UI. The UI part is very trivial. Try to create a UI where the user is able to do a continuous calculation with the calculator buttons and with the operations, and try to do it well. This can be impressive to someone who understands what it takes to create such a piece of application. You can create a game. I feel like games resonates more with people in general, whether it's employer or non-employer. So games also would be something that might get someone's attention. I was told once by a person who landed a job in Google that Google reached out to him for an interview just because in his profile on GitHub, he had solved a problem similar to something that they were working on. So I don't know where he came up with the project idea or whatever, but the keywords related to that problem was in his profile, was in his repository, and Google was doing research or whatever, and they reached out to him to join them. And actually he joined them. He was a very smart guy. So it's really depend. And also one other approach is to contribute to open source. It takes some time to get to the point where you can contribute to the open source, but there are some advices that you can even go and update the documentation in a famous open source project. All these kind of potential opportunities for you to get noticed is there. But if you're targeting a certain company, like if you feel like I would like to join this company based on their profile or based on your network or whatever, you can actually, you will be surprised how many people will respond to you on a casual basis.
even if they don't know you. You can reach out to someone in that company and say, hey, I would like to explore the option for me to join you guys in the future. What kind of projects you usually work on? And just by knowing what domain they are working on, what kind of projects they are working on, if your side project is close to what they are doing, it will feel like you can solve problems for them. And hence you have a value. And hence there's a potential opportunity there that they consider you, right? This is, of course, this is one way of doing it. The other way is to network, other way is to apply online, and so on. So there are many ways to get noticed for a job. So like attending those career fairs or career events, all these ways are segues for you to find a job, basically, right? And Ines, remind me, was Holang in your group when we had your course?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's correct. So actually, there was one student in a previous course that his project was really exceptional, and where I work, I have referred him, and he's working now there in the same company that I'm working in. And actually, in that specific group, I referred multiple students to join the company, and they had the opportunity to interview with the company. So it's not just me, like, but just because I noticed how good they did or whatever during the course, or how much effort they put, I thought it would be a good thing if I refer them. It can happen with anyone. You can know a friend, you can know someone. Pablo, like my first job was through Pablo, by the way. Like my very first tech job was through Pablo. He referred me to a person, and I got hired. So I feel like the short answer is try your best and then let things happen, basically, right? So do you focus on your part, and then hopefully things will play in your favor. Okay, any other questions? Okay, if no more questions, we can get started with Node. So guys, please pay attention, because this is very foundational part that you get to know about Node. So pay attention, please. If you're doing something on the side, try to stop getting distracted and just focus on whatever we are going to discuss here. So a quick refresher, anyone can recognize this drawing from the beginning of the course? So all that time we were on the left side of this picture, right? We were doing stuff here on the browser. Now we will move shift gear to the other side of the browser. Sorry, other side of the internet, creating the server, interacting with the database. So hopefully by the end of this part, we will close the loop on front end and back end. Okay, so what is Node? As I mentioned at the beginning of the course, Node is a runtime environment where we can run JavaScript. So historically, JavaScript used to run only on the browser. So on the browser, left side here, for instance, this example here is for Chrome. So Chrome has a JavaScript engine, has a JavaScript software that's able to translate the code from Java to machine code, where our computers can understand it. So the browser environment has an engine that can run JavaScript. So someone, I don't remember his name, took that engine and he wrapped it in a C++ application and called it Node. And since then, we are able to use JavaScript on the computers directly without a browser. So whatever we discussed about JavaScript in terms of being single thread language, being blocking, being whatever, all what we discussed about JavaScript is exactly available for us in Node. Okay, so Node is a runtime environment. It's not a programming language. It's not a different syntax. It's not any of that. It's just a runtime environment where we can run JavaScript on the computers. One of the major differences, when you are in the browser, you don't have, let's say, access to the file system. So when you write JavaScript on the browser, you cannot delete files from the hard disk, for instance. You cannot read files from the hard disk, for instance. and so on. But in Node, it's a fully functional programming environment, or runtime environment, where we can access all the computer peripherals, hard disk, network, port, sound, Bluetooth, whatever we want, we can access it in Node. So it's good for creating servers like C++, like Java, like Python, and so on. So this is Node in a nutshell. Now, like, why might you need Node? These are some good reasons why Node is an important runtime environment, or important to learn. Simply, there are these companies as example of many other companies are using Node in their backend, including Netflix, Trello. If you heard about Trello, it's a project management software. Walmart, Uber, ePay, NASA, all these entities are using Node. So it's already trusted by big organizations and big entities, and it's already proven to be a reliable tool. It's multi-purpose language. Again, it uses JavaScript. It has very large community in the sense, in our industry, you might have a lot of new technologies coming in, and some of them are competing with the others. But one differentiator is the community behind the tool, or behind the programming language. The greater the community, the better, because you will have more libraries to use. So you don't need to repeat or rewrite a lot of the solved problems already. So if someone has already created, let's say, a math or a complex mathematic library, you can get that for free. You can download it in your project. You can just use it. So the bigger the community, the better. Also, if you have problems or you are encountering errors, potentially you will find many others who already faced that problem and they have posted their answers or solutions online. So when you research, you come to know immediately about the solutions, so you don't need to struggle on your own. So this is how important to have a community behind. So Node has millions and millions of libraries available for use. Like, you cannot think of, like, you can keep thinking of multiple things every other minute, something new to come up with. If you go and search within the Node communities or NPM, the Node package manager, potentially somebody already done it before. It's huge. Finally, it's open source. So the code of the runtime environment Node is actually open source. You can go and see for yourself, and it's written in C++. So I think there are many good reasons for you to use Node. Node has some competition already that started emerging recently. There's a tool or a runtime environment called Dino. There is another one called Bun, and you compete in terms of performance, in terms of response, because Node is famous for building servers. So the number of requests that a server can respond to per second is a metric that these tools are competing. These tools are still evolving, like they don't have that much community, they don't have that much adoption in production. Node is already in several, like in millions of production environments for several companies. So it's quite stable and famous to be already trustworthy. Okay, so what is Node good for? What do we use Node for? We use it for web servers. We use it for microservices. So microservices is basically, instead of having one application running on the server, you can have multiple servers and multiple applications. Each one of them is serving a specific purpose in your overall architecture. So Node can work on a multi server architecture, or server microservices, or serverless architecture. Also, Node can be used to write drivers for database. So writing an actual database engine, Node can do that. Many command line interface tools that we have in the community is being written in Node. Also, Node is behind Electron. Electron is a framework where you can actually write applications for desktop. So you can write a desktop applications like Teams, for instance. The Microsoft Teams is written in Electron. in Vectran as a framework, but it's in JavaScript. You can write code for devices like sensors and measurement equipment and stuff like that, what we call IoT, Internet of Things. So sensors, driverless cars and stuff like that. Node is there. Plugins for desktop, shell scripts. This is when you want to automate tasks. So I mentioned about managing servers and deploying stuff. All these are manual operations, but with Node and some other tools and similar tools, you can actually automate all these tasks. So Node can do that as well. And finally, there is some machine learning and stuff and models that are written in Node. Node is not the best when it comes to machine learning and AI. Python is the one for that kind of stuff. So Python is very famous for artificial intelligence and machine learning and data science. So and it's also good for web development, but Node is more specialized in web development. Any questions before we start getting into some of the technical details about Node? Okay, so as I mentioned, Node is based on single-threaded event loop. This architecture model efficiently handles concurrent operations. So similar to the event loop, we discussed in the browser. Similar thing is available for us in Node. So through the async await syntax or promises, we can achieve the virtual concurrency that we have explained already with the browser. Okay, so I think we covered that already when we talked about JavaScript concurrency. So I'll skip over that. Now let's, I think we talked about this already. Okay, let's skip over this. We talked about async programming. Okay, let's talk about installation. So if you are on Mac, if you're in Windows, please go ahead and download Node from this link. So I'll paste the link in the chat. So please go ahead and download Node in this link. So this link basically takes you to the main web page for Node. So you can go ahead and download the LTS, latest technical support. Current can have some features that are not fully tested or fully proven to be bug-free, but LTS, latest technical support, is the one we usually go by. So you can do it with the Windows. For Windows, I recommend to use the Windows installer. However, for Mac users, I recommend to go with Brew. Or you can go with this installer as well if you want. So either for the Mac users, you can go either way. If you have Brew and familiar with it, go ahead and use Brew. If you're not, you can use this Mac installer. So take a minute and go ahead and into that link and download Node LTS, and let me know if you have any issues.
When do we finish today? 10:30 or 10?
10:30.
Also, next 3 lessons, including today.
Half an hour of it.
Okay, next 3 lessons, right?
Say again.
I mean, this next 3 lessons, including today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's correct.
Thanks.
No worries.
Hello.
Hey, Amir.
Yes, sir.
So I'm in the navigation. It says here automatically install necessary tools. Like, should I install them or?
Sorry, say again. What's the question?
So during the installation of Node, it says here automatically install the necessary tools.
Yes.
Should I,
Yes.
should I check it?
Yeah. You go ahead and do that. It will install. You're in Windows, right? So it will
Yes.
install Chocolatey and stuff like that. Usually everything is like you respond yes to the prompt.
Okay, I just want to make it. Sometimes like some libraries might
Yep.
conflict with other libraries. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hello. Yes.
So I guess I'm going through a lot of PowerShell installation, just automatically doing itself.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any issues? Anyone's facing issues with this installation? Like I'll check on you maybe in a couple of minutes. If anyone is not done, let me know. Okay. Is everyone done? Anybody still installing the node?
And do you know about the ports of default?
Sorry, say again.
Yes, done. Ports, Node.js use ports, and they need two numbers of ports. Ports of network ports, 8080, 8000, 4043, 4443.
Can you share? Are you able to share your screen?
What is the no? What is default port of
Is this a prompt or question from the installation, or this is a question from you?
Yes, it's a question for me because I need to match ports from the Docker container.
Ah, no, this would be when we create the application using Node. You will not do it now.
Okay.
We were too early to do that.
Yeah, I found myself.
Okay. But Node by itself is just an application. It will not yet access any ports or anything unless we create our applications, and in there we decide which port to expose. So we are not still there.
Oh, I found the default port of HTTP is 80.
Are you installing Node on a Docker through Docker?
It's useful. Is useful for me. It's comfortable.
Okay. I thought you're talking about your application hosted in Docker, but if you're installing Node image in Docker, yeah, it's a different story. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, but I don't like program in my
Yeah, it's up to you. No problem. As long as you can follow along what we were going to do, I have no problem.
Yeah.
No issues.
Another question. Oh, sorry. For
Yes.
Mac, am I supposed to see some icon? How do I know that it's installed?
So yeah, I'm coming to that. So in the terminal, you would do node-v, and if you get some version, that means it's installed. We will check through the terminal.
And this should work even without the Git, right? Because I'm not able to install that yet because my machine is full.
Think about Git Bash as a way for you to follow along with the same commands I'm using, but in your PowerShell or command standard CMD on Windows, you should be able to do the same command node-v, and it should work as well.
Okay, thank you.
Should I share my screen?
Yeah, you have a problem? Go ahead.
Yeah. So in the PowerShell, this process is completed might be.
Yeah, do you mind opening Git Bash and see if you type node? Yeah, I think you're good. But if it didn't prompt you to do to exit the process, it might be busy. So leave it for now. Don't terminate it now. The blue screen.
Okay.
Just leave it for now. Yeah, just leave it for now. And if it doesn't clear it, failed to update. There's a failed. There's an exception already.
So you mentioned chocolate that is might be completed earlier. This one, right?
Yeah, feel free to exit this screen, and we will test now Node. So it seems like Node is installed, though. So those might be one of the additional tools or whatever. So it should be fine to close it now, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anybody else unable to run the command and see Node version on the terminal? So this is the command that I want you to run to confirm that your download is successful.
Yeah, I think mine saying command is not. Can I share it?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Are you sharing screen?
Yeah, let me check.
So did you install Node?
Can you see me? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Then Node D is bringing like command not
Okay,
found.
close this window and open a
Okay.
new one. This must have been open from before.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
close this. Yeah, close this window and open a new one, because
Okay.
if the terminal is already open and you install a new tool, the existing terminal that's open doesn't realize the new stuff until you close it and open a fresh window.
Okay.
Did it work? Let me know if it's still not working.
Sorry, Amr, Judimer sent a text that he failed to update the latest installer. I'm not sure if he might be has to disable firewall or antivirus or run it as
Okay.
an. I don't know.
Judimer, do you want to share your screen? Judimer, are you able to share screen?
I think he restarted computer, I guess.
Oh, okay, okay. Anybody else facing issues?
It worked, and then how to get rid of this PowerShell? How do I leave? It's like
just close it. Just close it. Okay. Anybody else facing issues? Is it safe to assume that everyone successfully installed Node and able to see the Node version on their terminal? If not, please speak up now. Okay, so it seems like everyone is set. Fantastic. So we can move on. Okay, back to my notes. So we will verify the installation, as I mentioned, using this node dash version or -v on the command, and you should see some sort of a version number. If you get command not found, that means node is not installed. The only comment I have here for you, like I mentioned, close the terminal before you try the command, because if I have a terminal open and I install a new CLI tool, this window will not be aware of it because it was open before the installation of that tool. It has context, or it's aware of everything before that moment until it was open. In this case, you have to close it and open up a new one and try again the command. Okay. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so there is, like, if we try to, through the command line, through the through our terminal, if we just type node and hit enter, we get into what we call REPL, read, evaluate, print, loop. So REPL is what is in here. This is like, basically you can think of it as a while loop where the cursor or the terminal is waiting for our commands. So if we give it a valid JavaScript syntax and we run it, it works. And then it goes back to the terminal where it's waiting for another command. So if we say constant x equal 1, and then we say console.log x, we get 1. Now it feels like we are running JavaScript, but line by line. So this is what we call REPL. To exit that REPL, you can use the Control C twice, and it exits from that loop. So it's basically, you can think of it as a while loop with monitoring the Control C keys, and only then it exits. Otherwise, it goes through a continuous loop. So this is one option for you if you'd like to quickly try something on Node, or like try a quick command or a code snippet or something from the terminal itself. So this is an option for you. Now, let's go ahead and create a Node script. So for us to create a Node script, we will create a file called index.js. So I would like everyone to go to their VS Code, start a new project, call it Node demo. So we'll create a project, we will call it Node demo. And in that project, please create a new file, call it index.js if you'd like to practice the skills that you just learned. If you open up the terminal within VS Code, so in VS Code, you can open a built-in terminal. You can change the environment to Git Bash if you are in Windows, or ZSH is the default, which is good in Mac. And in there, you can actually, hold on a second. VS Code decided to update now. Okay, so there you can actually use the built-in terminal. So there's a built-in terminal in VS Code that we will be using. Just make sure you are not in PowerShell. Make sure you are using Git Bash. Now, if you are on Windows, potentially you need to remember we have the command palette. You can access the command palette using Control-Shift-P or Command-Shift-P on Mac, and you can say you can search for default. You can search for terminal, select default profile, and if you select that, it gives you a list of all the terminals, possible terminals installed in your machine. So Git Bash should be one of them, and you should be able to select it as your default profile. So every time you open a new terminal using this plus icon, it opens up with the default profile. You can kill the terminal at any point using the trash can. The close button here will minimize it. To kill the terminal, to close the terminal physically, this is the trash can that you have to use. You can add as many terminal in parallel, and you can put them in different views. So for instance, here using this, this is called, by the way, this is called meatball menu because it has 3 dots. And in there, sorry, I'm not talking about this one. On the terminal, you can actually use this section divider or the split to have it side by side. So you can see as I click between the windows, they are moving between these windows. So you can split them in any layout that you like. Usually we will be running only with one terminal at a time. So now if I would like to quickly create a file, I can say touch index.js. This will create a file for me. And if I would like to open this file in VS Code, we can use the code command. So the code command represents VS Code. So I can code index and hit enter. This will open up the index for me. And I could have double clicked here for sure, but I'm just showing you that you can do things also from the command line. So I would like everyone to confirm that they are at this point. They have a new project and they have created an index.js, whether from the GUI or from the terminal, it doesn't really matter, as long as you have that. Anybody not at this point?
Sorry, I have the index.js, but how do I get this bottom part, the terminal?
Of course. So on the top, you should have a menu, and in there you will see terminal, and then you can click on new terminal.
Got it. Thank you.
Also, there is a shortcut, control backtick. It toggles the menu, the terminal to open, like it hides it and put it in view again. Okay. So I assume everyone is at this point, and then let's write our very first script. Now you will notice that I will just type basically JavaScript, because again, Node is a runtime for JavaScript. So there's no new syntax, there's no new language features or anything. Whatever we learn in JavaScript, we will be using it here. There might be additional classes or additional features or way of work that we will talk about specific to Node, but it's again in JavaScript. Now, if I do console.log, hello world. Now, if in the past, not in the past, in the previous classes, when we were dealing in the front end side of things, when we wrote JavaScript file, we had to link it to an HTML file through the script tag, and only we can see the output of the console in the browser console. Now with Node, things are slightly different. We actually deal with the computer console. So this is our PC terminal, right? So to run this file, we don't need a browser. We have already installed Node, so we can call Node and we pass our file name as a parameter and we hit enter, and this will execute the file and gives us the output. As simple as that. Any questions so far? Okay, no questions. Shall I assume everything is good? Okay, now let's talk about the Node runtime environment. In the browser, you will notice that I will mention the browser several times because I'm trying to get you to understand that there's a difference in terms of the environment that the JavaScript is running. So here, for instance, this is any website, I don't care. And I have the console here. If I console log the window object, what I'm expecting here? What is the window object in this case? Can anybody remember? Or does anybody remember? What was the window object in the browser? Represents what? Or the document? What is the document object? Can anybody remember? This should be easy. So what's the window? The window is very obvious. This is the window. So this is the object represents the window where the or basically the tab that the browser is the document, our document is running in, our page is running in, and the document is the actual document, is the actual page. So if we console log these two, and I have a typo, so let me fix that. We get the window object, the entire representation of the window, and we have the document, which is the actual thing. So what happens if I have the same console log here? Like what if I take that console log, same console log, and I use it here? What should I expect if I run this in Node? Can anybody guess? I need an answer, guys.
Undefined.
Okay, why is that? Why undefined?
Because it doesn't have HTML file.
Exactly. Node doesn't have, there's no document, right? There's no window. It's Node, it's a different environment, right? So if I run this code, if I do node, if I run the previous command, node index.js, we get window is not defined. There's no such thing called window, okay? So this window object thing is just in the browser. Fantastic. So what replaces window? What is window in the browser was kind of our global object that everything is running within that window object. Now, what is equivalent to that in Node is what we call the global object. So here we have, if we console log global, and we run this code one more time, we get an actual object this time. So here we have something called a global object that represents the instance of Node that runs our file or our script. In there, we will find something like there are properties like global, like there is also clear interval and set interval, clear timeout, set timeout. Those should be familiar because at least set timeout, because we used set timeout in the to-do app when we wanted to clear the local storage every 5 seconds or whatever. Also, there are the queue micro task. If you remember, we discussed about the queue micro task or the micro task queue when we were discussing about the event loop. There is some performance object here that talks about the instance name, entry, start time, duration, and so on. So this talks about performance stuff related to this instance of Node running our script. Clear immediate, set immediate, another type of timers that are available on the global object. Also stuff like console log and all the familiar, the methods that we have been dealing with, like array, number, and all these kind of methods or constructors are available on the global object. So for instance, this console log here is available on the global object. So I can do it, I can show you that. If we say global dot console log, we will get some same output. So the console log and all the stuff that used to be under the window object, and we didn't prefix it with the object because the node or the browser understands, it's called global in the case of Node. So far so good. So this is a big differentiation between Node and the browser. Again, I'll repeat this again because this is a very extremely important concept that it confuses a lot of developers. So we have two different runtime environments. We have the browser and we have Node. Those are two different runtime environments that we can run JavaScript. Both can run JavaScript. Both of them can run JavaScript. However, the browser relies on a couple of main objects. So the global object or the global entity in that browser is window. In Node, that entity is called global, and it doesn't have. So since global and window are fundamentally different, for instance, what happens if I do something like this? In the browser, we used to do document dot query selector of whatever. Now, what happens if I run this code? What do you think will happen? based on this discussion that we are having now?
Nothing. I think it's undefined. The query selector are supposed to
So if-
work with the
actually, if we run this code, we will get an error because remember, we said, as we said here, we don't have window object, and the document was part of the window object. So the window object existed within the window object, right? It's not by itself. So the window object, the document object, which is within the window object, is something created by the browser when we are in the front end. Global doesn't have something called document. There's no such thing called document here, right? Here, there is no document. It's a totally different environment. Okay? Make sense so far? Okay, so we get type error. There's no such thing, or reference error. There's no such thing called document. Okay? So this is one important concept to keep in mind when we deal with Node. Don't confuse yourself depending on the environment. Okay, so the other important thing we need to discuss here, that Node is using what we call the module system. So every file you create in Node is considered a module. So let's back to the drawing board here. So let's assume that you have created your index.js. So you have index.js. Now this is considered a module. So this is, we call it a file. So every file equates to module. So every time we create a file, we are creating technically a module. So implicitly, Node will think of or consider index.js as a module. So if I have another file in my project that's called logger.js. Now this is another module. If I have a third file in my project called authentication or auth.js, this is another module. Okay, now modules can be imported and exported. So if Logger is exporting a method or a constant or a class or anything, basically an object to be used anywhere, it can be imported. So here we can use we can import anything from one module to the other. So as long as the module made something available through the export, we can use it wherever we want. So in this module, we will be, or in any of these modules, for example, we will be doing export. And in this module, where we are importing things, we will use the import. Or we can use what we call also require. So these are two different ways to bring in modules from, or objects from one module to the other. Okay. So let's see this example in action. So now I will create another file, call it logger.js. And here I will create a very simple function. So I will create a very simple function. So here we'll say function logger of message. And what we will do here, we will basically console log. This is a very simple example. So we'll console log this message. And later in the file, we can say export module.export equals logger. So this is the syntax. So every module has a property called export, and we can export either an object with multiple properties, or we can actually just export that one line item or that one function. The preferred way is to export an object with the properties that you want. Now, someone should have said, we should have done something like this. The property name is logger, and the function that I'm exporting is logger. So in JavaScript, if the property name and the value have the same name, we can actually get rid of the colon and the second part of that. So JavaScript understands that this is equivalent to logger colon logger, or sorry, logger colon logger. It's a shorthand for less typing. Okay, so this is equivalent to this. Okay, now we have exported from one module. We can simply come here and say, okay, constant logger equals require, and then we import the entire from the entire module. So here we will be using the path of that file. So this would be logger, and if the extension of the file is .js, we don't need to explicitly mention it here. And just because we are exporting an object, the expectation that this is an object, right? So we use something called destructuring. So destructuring means if I would like to extract one value from an object, this is the syntax for it. So we say constant and curly brackets, the property name that I would like to extract, close that curly bracket, and then we get it from that value. So this is equal to, if I do this in 2 steps, I can say logger module, and later I can say logger module dot logger, and then I pass some message from index.js. This way is equivalent to if I come here and say just logger, give me that specific property. I don't need the entire module. And in this case, we can get rid of the prefix. So now if we run our code, let's run our code clear first, and then we run node index.js. So it says logger is not a function. Okay, let's see. So let's first console log what we are getting from the module and see if we have messed up something. Log logger. So let's see what is logger at the, maybe it's undefined. Let's see. So it's undefined, that's correct. Module.exports, I guess. If I'm not mistaken, maybe I missed the S. Let me run again. Okay, now I missed the S, sorry, my bad. Should be exports, not export. So I'll remove that console log that was meant for troubleshooting, and then we will repeat the process of using the logger function from module logger.js. So now if I run this function, I get the message. That means I was able to export from one module and import in the other module. So this takes us back to this conversation. So in one module, I can create any function, any constant, any variable, any class, export it, include it in the module.exports, and import it in the index.js. We can do it this way. Same thing if we had an auth.js. So let's create this file as well. So if we had auth.js, and here we have created a function is authorized. And we create that maybe this time as an arrow function. And this function will be really simple one that we will just return true. So return true. Yes, it's authorized, whatever the logic is. And then we come here and say again module dot exports equal, and then we export an object that contains is authorized. Similarly, we can go to the index.js and destruct is authorized. So constant is authorized from the module auth.js. We don't need to mention the .js again. And simply if I console.log is authorized, and just I call this function, I'm expecting true anyway. So we run this code and we get the message from logger and true from is authorized. So as you can see, we can modularize our application. This opens the door for modularity. So every file will contain one single responsibility or will worry about one single responsibility. So we should be able to segregate and organize our folders and files in a neat way. Now, is it that only our modules that we can create? No. JavaScript, Node has its own built-in modules as well. So Node comes with a few built-in. So let's change the color here. And let's make it green actually. So make it light green. So Node comes with a few built-in modules like the FS module, the file system module, like also the OS module, like the operating system module. We can access stuff on the operating system level. We have also the process module. We have the events module. We have so many modules that comes with JavaScript. There's so many of them. So here, etc., etc. So all those modules are available for us to use. So I can technically grab any of those modules to my project and use it with no issues. So I can, few methods or bunch of methods have been exported from each one of those, and simply I can import it to my project and use it the way I want. In the documentation, if we visit node.org, node.org, I guess. Oh, sorry, node.js.org. And we head to the documentation, docs, and we check the API. Now you will notice this is the one that I was giving as an example, the file system. So here you can see the file system has a lot of methods and stuff that we can use. It's beyond even covering. Like, and I don't think one human can comprehend all this. Depending on what you're doing and what you're using, you start reading and understanding the context of the capabilities of the tool that we have. So I'll give you one example of one of the built-in modules, which will be the file system. So let's take an example here. So we will bring in the file system module in our file index.js. So we'll say index fs, which will carry the entire module. Like I will import the entire object, not one of them. If I know what I'm using, I can destructure it like we did with the logger and is authorized. So here we will say require assembly fs. Now this brings us to how Node react to the require. So usually it will start looking at its global modules first. And if it doesn't find it, it tries to look for it locally. If it doesn't find it, it throws an error. So it goes in sequence, basically, okay? So let's see how can we use this FS module that we just wrote. So we can say something like we can read. Actually, we can read a file. So let's create some text file here. So I'll create node underscore demo file.txt, and in that file I will have some random lorem text. So let's see if lorem is working here. No, so we can get something from that extension I have called lorem. Oh, I still have it. Yeah, we can get it online actually with lorem website. So we can get some random text here from this guy, paste it in our file and save it. So we have some file, can be anywhere in the desk, not necessarily on this project folder, it could have been anywhere. So let's read that file. So we can say fs file system dot read from a directory. And this will give us basically the list of files in that directory. So we can say this read directory will take two parameters. One is the path. So I'm saying I would like to read from the current directory. Remember the dot represents my current directory. And this file, index.js current directory, is the node demo, which is the project root folder. The second parameter here is a callback function. So we will create a callback function that accepts two parameters. The first parameter is error, and the second parameter is files. So this gets injected by the read directory method. And we can say simply f error. If there is an error, we can console log error reading current folder, because this is what we are reading. Otherwise, and actually we can also return, or we can use else. So if we use else, we can console log files, which is the files in this directory. So let's run our code now and see what do we get. So let's clear and let's run node. And if I say node dot, by the way, I have been using node index.js. If I say node dot, node by default will go and look for an index.js file. So node is built in a way that if we run it in a folder, it will try to find index.js by default. So node dot or node index.js are both basically the same. So I'll use that. Now notice that I'm getting that output here from the console log files, line number 10, which is the auth.js, index.js, logger.js, node demo file.txt. So it's giving me a list of all the files in that directory. Now let's give it some weird path, something wrong. Let's give it 1, 2, 3 and run the same application. And now this is a non-existent path. So in this case, this callback function received the error, and we are getting the error here, which we console log. And actually, we could also console log the actual error that we receive, so we can see what node is giving us. So we get the whole error message, no such file or directory. This is the actual error message. So this is one method available for us from the FS module, which is built-in node, gives us access to the file system. As you can see here, I'm reading what files in the current directory. I couldn't do that in the browser. And FS is not available in the browser. So let's put this back as a good code. Then the second example here, let's read the actual content of a file. So here we can use the read file method. And this read file method takes, again, two arguments. The first one is the path. So here I can say node demo text or node demo file. And the second, again, it's a callback function with error and buffer. So the buffer is basically when we read a file, it's being dealt with in sequence because it's more efficient reading stuff in batches from or in a buffer, like buffering, similar to what you see in the videos in YouTube. So when you load the video for the first time and you see the progress bar, sometimes you will notice there's a dark gray area or section beyond the current minute that you are watching. This is basically buffering the data for the video, right? So same thing for any file that we can buffer the data that we're reading from the file sequentially, especially if it's a big file like videos or whatever, but this one is text. So we will get an error and the actual content in a buffer format, and it's a callback function again. So we can say f error, we can repeat the same thing, console.log the error. Otherwise, else we can console log the buffer, but then we need to convert this buffer to a string. So we can read, we know that we are reading a text file. So there is a method on the buffer class that can convert it to a string. So we can convert it to a string and we can see the output. So now if I run this code, notice now I'm getting this text, which is in the file. If I console log the buffer, just the buffer without converting it to a string, we will get something that you might recognize also. So let's run that, which is this. It's a buffer. And notice now we are getting the ASCII representation of each character on that file. So for instance, for C, represents L. So this is the digital representation or the hex representation of each character here. That's why we needed to convert it to a string. So we should see it in the normal or the human readable text format that we know of. Also, we can write data to file using this fs module. So we can say fs.write file. And in this case, we need to provide a file name. So here we can say greeting or greetings.txt. So we'll write some file here. We need the second parameter is to pass the data. So the data is the second parameter here. It can be a string or array buffer view, similar to what we have seen before. So I can give it here a string saying hello world from index.js. This is the string that I would like to write. And then we can pass the third thing is the callback function, and it receives only the error because the data has been passed before. And in this case, we say if error, we can console log that error. Sorry. So let's say if error, we can console.log this error. Otherwise, else, we can basically console log file write successful. Okay. Now, if we run this code with trying to create a file called greetings, write to it, and then we see a success or error message. If we run this code, we get that the file was written successfully. And also we got a new file here called greetings, and it has that text that we added. So as you can see with the FS module, which is a built-in Node module, we were able to access the methods, which is read directory, write file, and we were able to retrieve a list of files in a directory, or actually read the content of an actual file, or write to a file, whichever content we need. So this is something that's not for sure available for us in the browser. And there are some other modules that might be interesting for you. One of them, but before I go to the second module, any questions about the FS module?
If we have any directory files, you replaced or add new rows?
Which line you're referring to, sorry? Which one?
No, I think I asked about if we have greetings.txt and we run this script.
In a folder?
What's happened if we have in a directory this file? This file.
Yeah, we can run the code again and change the text maybe. So let's change something. I'll put some few underscores here.
Yeah.
So we run the code and then we visit the file, and it's basically replace the file. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we can get create, like I'm trying to give you an idea what is out there, right? We will not like this is basically for Node. When we start creating the server, I might mention about the file operations, but we will use a framework that abstracts these things away from us. It will give us a better API to work with. But for now, I want you to see how this API or framework might be doing behind the scene. So if you would like to write your own framework, you can actually, but just by knowing Node. For instance, you can read, if you'd like to create a function that like fs dot write file, right? I'm sure that if we explore the API, let's go through the documentation. So write file Node.js, and let's go to the documentation. So write file. There we go. So we have this function, and we have the documentation here. And it has an option here for the position. So it has, like you see, we were giving it the file path and then the data and a callback. Now, it has a position. It has a position option where you can pass a number from where you would like to write the data in the file. So, for instance, you can first read the file, get the content of the file, and then maybe count it or whatever, and then you can append a position here where the new text should be inserted. So you can get creative using these things along with reading the documentation, depending on what you're trying to do. Okay. But you can use it for append or override, depending on how you pass these parameters, basically. Okay. Any other questions?
Can you show Logger.js and Aux.js again? I didn't get how to register model. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
1 second. And Logger.js, please. Okay, thank you.
No worries. Okay. So there is another interesting module, built-in module in Node that we can use called Path. So Path is another module available for us. So we can require Path in our file, in our project. And we can use it in few interesting ways. So let me go down below and then start here. So let's get first of all the object that Path return if we query the existing directory. So we can actually say const path object equals path.parse and then __ file name. So every Node module have access to __ file name and __ their name. These are two properties available for every object, for every module. So this is a property of every module. You don't need to say module dot file __ file name. It's already implicitly understood by the node that this will be available on the module object. Now, if we console log to see what is that path object, let me comment some of the console log here or the whole thing here, or even this, also this, so we can just focus on the new stuff. So here, if we run this code, it's clear, and run node dot. Now notice we get from the path module parse, and we give it the file name. So file name is this file name, index.js. So it gives us a nice object that has some properties of that file, which is the root is / means the current directory. This is the full path from the root directory of your machine, which is users, my username, projects, node, May, and the node module, node demo. The base file name, this is the index, the extension.js, the name is index. So you get with the path module, one of the things you can do, you can get full information about any file name in your system. So this is one thing. Also, if you give it __ their name, the output might be slightly different because we didn't inquiry a file. So this time it's giving you the information about the folder itself. So the base is node demo, the name is node demo. Again, the full path to this folder, and the root is the computer root. Okay. So we can get access to any path actually. So if I do give it, if I go back and I give it, or even I think tld should work. So let's see. So you see tld is almost tld everywhere just because it's the base directory. And then if we do /users, my username, projects, and then we parse that. Notice now also I'm able to get the information about that. And if there is a specific file, same thing. The most useful ones that I showed you, the _ their name and _ file name. Those are very useful, and we will use them actually when we get to doing our very first server. Now I mentioned one thing about the module. So let me console log the keyword module, similar to what we did in the global. So if I do console.log module, let's see what do we get. So notice we get all this object. So this object represents what? Represents that file, this file that we are here. So it gives you the path to this module, the file name, which is index.js, loaded, and then there are the ID of this, and then it has children, and the children are basically everything that you are importing here. So you can see we imported the logger, so this is one child module. We imported auth, this is a child module. It will not give you the global ones built in Node because it's not really part of this module. However, those are direct children. And then we have the path, or path is related to this module. So there is a this object. So when we say module.export, basically we are appending that exports property of this object. So if I come to the logger and I console log also module here, and then let's comment the other one, and let's run our code. Notice now, so we get why exports is empty. Oh, because I run it after, before the module is being appended. Okay. Now, if I console log at the end, you can see here, this is what we have been exporting as part of this, the module object. So this whole file or any module is being represented by an object. Any questions so far? No questions? Okay. So whatever we are discussing now is really important because we will be using these features of the node in when we create our very first server. So please, if you have any questions or doubts, let me know. Okay. So let's see. We have also another module. And whatever I'm going to explain now is just to show you the capability of Node, not necessarily to create our very first server. It will look like we are creating our very first server, but this is not the one. This is just to create server with the pure knowledge we have so far. But in practice, we use a library called Express. But for now, let me show you how can we create a server using the HTTP module built-in node. So let's bring it in. So we will bring in HTTP, require HTTP. So this is the module that has the access to the network port and network card in our machine. So the first thing here, HTTP is giving us access to. so sorry, we need to create a server first, so we can create a constant for the server, and this will be from the HTTP dot create server, as simple as that. So this function will take care of interacting with the network card, ports, etc., and then gives us a way to expose an address or a port number, so we can communicate through it. What is a port number? We mentioned that a couple of times already. So in our computers, so if this is our computer, this is our machine. And I need to zoom in. Okay, so in our computer, in our laptop, desktop, mobile, all of them, they got a network card. So we have a piece of hardware that is a network card. Okay, so this network card, basically the one that exposes the traffic or connect with the external world, like the internet or I don't know, any other computer. So this can be, let's say, internet or another PC. So this network card gives us access to the external world, but it receives a lot of traffic. So maybe it's receiving a traffic from the internet for 2-3 different applications running here. So in your computer, you might have app 1. So you might have application 1 running. You might have another application running. You might have multiple applications running, like when you have the browser running, and then you have your Teams running, and you have, let me send this to back. Oops. And so on. So you can imagine app 1 maybe your browser, app 2 maybe your Zoom, and so on. So the network card is actually one line, it's Wi-Fi or whatever, and it's communicating through the internet, and there is a lot of traffic coming through that connection. So as this traffic comes in, each application will request a port. Think about it like the network card is a big building, and every application that exposes multiple gates, and each gate will have a number. So as the traffic comes in, the network card job is to route the different traffic to different ports or different gates. So every one will be redirected to the correct port. So depending on the traffic coming, right? And depending on the port, the connection will be made available for a specific app. So this port will be dedicated to this app, this port will be dedicated to this app, and so on. So in development, usually we use, when we create our app, our server on this machine, and we would like to expose that through the network card or through the internet, basically we give it a number. So the number that we will use now is basically 3000. When we run the application locally, meaning our app that's receiving the traffic and the app that creates the traffic are on the same machine, we have kind of a closed loop. We don't go outside. We have a closed loop here. So if the browser, we run the browser locally, so this is called localhost. And then we direct this localhost to 3000. What will happen? Let's color this differently. So if we have an application like our browser running on the localhost 3000 as URL, the traffic will not be actually routed from outside. It will be just routed directly here. The port will be still assigned, but it will be like a closed loop, like internal loop, just like that. It will not fly outside the computer. So everything will be inside the machine itself. So we can do it in with one line, something like that. Okay, so back to our application, and when we create the server, basically we are creating that app, and we have to assign a port for it, for other applications to be able to communicate with it. So if we do that, we can say server the reference we just created, dot on. On, it's very similar to event listeners. So in Node, we have this syntax on to be thought of similar to add event listener. So the event that we would like to listen to is connection. So when we have a connection, we receive a socket. So this is the object that will represent the connection. And then we can console log that we received new connection. So every time an app connect to our server, we listen to that event and we console log something on the console. Then we need to say server, we need to start the server. So we say server.listen, start listening to, and then we give the port number, which is 3000 in this case. And finally, after we get the server to start listening, we can console log server started on port 3000. Now, if we run this code, so let's clear and let's do node dot. Notice I have a console log here hidden somewhere in logger. So let me disable that. And let's restart. So now notice when I run node on the index, it says server started on port 3000. Now let's say open the browser on the side here. I will go to one of the tabs and I will say localhost 3000. Let's send some connection to port 3000. And right away we get new connection. So that means this browser, we are not receiving any response. That's why the browser is kind of in a load state waiting for any response. There's no response from our servers yet. But when we requested to connect, this event happened and we were able to see that there is a new console log. And every time if I stop and refresh, sorry, if I say localhost again 3000, I will get another console log. So with every request to the server, we are getting this console log. So let's make this a little bit smarter and actually do something. Let's respond to the server. So when we create the server here, we can actually pass a callback function. So here we can say server, or let's say serve. Let's call it serve, and let's define the serve up there. So we will create a function called it serve, or local server. Let's call it local server, better name. And this will be a function. So let's create a callback function that the server will be using as a way to handle those requests that's coming to the server. So this function receives from the HTTP module request and response. So the request coming to the server and the response going from the server will be represented with two objects. One is called request and the other is called response. Now inside that local server, we can say f the request.url. When this request is created, one of the properties is the URL. So if the URL is /, meaning the home page, we can simply say response.write. So write something back as a response, hello. Or we can even do something like this, h1, hello from our server. And we can have something like that. And then writing the response back is not enough. We have to close that response. We have to end that response. Because in the future, you will see that we can actually have a loop or a chain of operations that we do on the response. Now, we have created this local server. Let's stop the current server instance because it's a continuous loop. And then we run it again. So I'll run again the file. And then let's see what happened. So I'll close that. It seems like the browser was trying. So let's create a fresh one. And now we get that response. So we were hitting the home page and we were getting the response. So this callback function that we created has been used by the create function method, so create server method, and using the access to the request and the response, we were able to respond. All the magic is happening in this module in Node. Okay. Then we can actually extend on that. We can say f request.url if the URL that we are receiving equals to, let's say, API books. Let's say we are getting some book data. So we can respond.write. And here we have access also to JSON.stringify. So we can send that, always we have to send a string back as a response. So we can stringify, let's say, an array of objects. So we can say ID 1, this is one object. Let's say another object, ID 2 and ID 3, as if those are representing 3 books. So we are stringifying an array of 3 objects, and we will send that as our response. And then we do response.end, and we can stop the existing instance of the server and restart a new one. And then let's see if we hit the home page, we get that message. But if we hit /API books, we get that response. I have an extension that does that. So if I disable this extension for a second, this is what you should see if you're following along. But I have this extension that's called JSON Viewer that actually gives me that view here on the browser. So as you can see, we can simply create a server. And even this lesson on, we don't really need it. It was just for me to show you that we have console log coming on every request. And then we can start the server by calling or invoking the server.lesson on any port of our choice, and simply pass a callback function that has access to the request and response object. And in there, we can check which URL is being requested, and we can formulate our request. Now you can imagine, and bear with me, I will extend for a couple of minutes. Now you can imagine if I have a file here stored in public folder, and inside the public, I have index.html, and in that I will create an HTML document and say hello world, and here we will say h1 hello from server in HTML format, correct? And we can have even script. We can include also a script, so we can include a script. We can include the CSS, but we need to add additional code for it. But let's work with this guy. So now, knowing about the FS module and about this HTTP, what can we do to respond with this HTML? So simply, instead of sending a string like that, what can we do? We can use what we just did here. We can read the file. So we can make use of this FS module read file. So we can read a file from the disk, basically reading what? Reading public index.html. So we read that, and then instead of console logging the data, right, we can actually write it to the response. So here, instead of doing that, we can say else response.write the buffer.toString, and we don't need this guy anymore. So basically, we can read the HTML file and ship it to the front end, right? So here, if we add more stuff, we can add a B tag with lorem, just to see the whole thing. Now let's test this. So I will stop the previous instance of the server. I'll create a new one, and then let's go ahead and hit the home page. Now notice what we are getting. We are getting that HTML page that we just created. And if we inspect, it has a proper HTML as we sent it, and it has the body. Now, one more thing that we need to do. What if we have a CSS file here? So let's quickly create a CSS file here, style.css, link it to the HTML. So we will put it here. So we'll say link CSS, and it will be style.css. So if I restart the server, and in that CSS, I will simply say background color salmon. I would like to see this one as a background. Now, if we restart this guy and we refresh, notice now that we are not getting the styles. And if we inspect our network, let's refresh. So first of all, something is hanging here, right? And it seems like that file is not being sent by the server. Why is that? Can anybody guess? Why, when the HTML document was sent to the front end, it's being parsed, it found that there is a CSS file that needs to be pulled from the server, and it's trying to get it, and it's not getting any response. Can anybody guess what's happening? Based on this information that we have here?
Maybe we need to read.
We need
Like,
something. Yeah, here we need something to tell the local server function, if this asset is requested, send it. We didn't create that. We didn't create something to send that file when it's requested, right? So very similar to that, we can create another if statement here. We can say if what is requested is style.css, if this is what's being requested, right? Go ahead and read public style.css and send it. Make sense? So let's now stop, restart, refresh. Here we go. So technically, we need to make sure our server, every time it gets a request, we need to handle that request. It will not magically understand what should be sent. Make sense? Same thing for JavaScript. If we had a JavaScript file here, script.js, and in that I will basically do alert, hello world, and I will include it in the HTML. So we can come here and say script. And the source would be script.js. And let's go ahead and restart the server. And if we request that, again, the server will be hanging because it's trying to request that script and there's no response. Now, again, we need to go back, make our server ready to handle such scenario. So again, we need to create another place where if a script.js is requested, we basically read that script.js and send it. So now if we stop the server and repeat the process, we get the alert because the JavaScript was loaded. Okay, so of course, in a big project, you will not sit and try to figure out each file and which one should be sent and which one shouldn't be sent, because you can see it's a tedious process, right? If we do it manually like that. So this is where frameworks comes into place. Frameworks will be a layer on top of Node. So when I say framework, like Express, so it will be like a layer on top of Node. So if Node is giving us access to HTTP module, it's giving us access to the FF module, it's giving us to the path module, a framework, a library will come as a layer on top of that. It will wrap it in a way that it gives us a better API, a better way to deal with these situations. For instance, when we deal with Express, as we'll see next class, all the static assets like script, like style, anything that's sitting in the public folder and being requested by the browser, it will have one line of code. And then Express, the framework that we will use, will handle these kind of things for us. But now we know how it's being done. Make sense? Okay, I'll not hold you more than that. If anyone has questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll let you go and I'll see you next week.
Oh yeah, I have heard a lot of questions.
Okay. If you think the answer is like 5 minutes, I can take it now. Otherwise, let's keep it for the beginning of next class.
I try. Can we run multiple servers?
Yes, but as long as they are not using the same port. Like for instance, now this server is running on port 3000, right? If I create another terminal, because this terminal now is occupied, is fully busy with this guy. I cannot even enter any new commands or anything. I cannot use this terminal anymore, but I can initiate a new terminal. I can open a new terminal. And if I try to say node dot, I will get an error because it says address already in use, 3000. So if I will show you a way that you can change the port number dynamically in the upcoming classes, but as long as the same port, you cannot use the same port twice. Remember this drawing here. Each port is hooked up to an application, and if it's in use, no other application can use it.
Okay, can we run multiple ports in one servers?
Yes, you can, but like keep that for another. Like I'll keep it in the future classes. We can discuss that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I'll have to go, guys. So I'll see you next week, and I'll upload this code to the GitHub in case someone needs to take a look. So see you next week. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.